want to admit. Because we are both very young at heart.
And because I'm such a smart aleck.
Me too. That's what I So I have known Ian for a very long time, and Ian has done so much here in the community that he also has decided that to grace us with his presence to talk more about his amazing life. Are you ready?
Yes.
Is that good? Okay.
Woo!
Let's hear it for Ian.
Here for Ian! Yay!
So that's what I looked like at that point. I changed my look a lot, but yeah, my name is Ian. I'm 36. I'm someone who lives with developmental disability and some mental health stuff and chronic pain. And I have been a self-advocate in Boise since I was 14. I think was when I did my first public speaking. So since that time, and I also am someone who's very unique. I have a lot of friends, but and I have several hobbies, and I have lived I'm also unique in the developmental disability community because I've gone from a group home to support living to self-direction, and I'm going to talk more about that. And I'm a graduate from BSU as well with your honors in communications and leadership and human relations. And I also did public relations, but I'll talk more about that later. So yeah, that's me. I live by myself downtown Boise too, which I love. And I'm an athlete, so yeah, that's me.
Ready to move on?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I was in a group home for a decade from when I was 12, and I just turned 23 when I got out of it. I learned basic skills like laundry, cooking, writing, feeling my emotions, and I also did some graphing for them for a bit as kind of like an introduction to like what more, it's kind of an academic introduction more to college, because they knew I needed to graph in college, so I did some graphing on some of the stuff that I was doing for a bit, but that didn't last very long because I have very bad handwriting and I'm very bad at graphs. Hence why I wasn't an English or math major. It helps because at that point I need structure. Like I was up at a certain time, I was back at a certain time, unless I was doing an activity, and I'd be on the schedule because at that point that's what I needed. I had chores that I did pretty much every day: laundry, put laundry away, clean my room, cook. I had to learn how to budget. Like the last few years I had a check account, because that's something my mom said I needed. So the last few years there, I had a check account, and I also had a debit card for a short bit there, but I had to learn how to budget because I would want to buy coffee several times a day if you let me, but so I had to learn how to budget other things such as sports when I had to pay for it, and such as tithing to church when I wanted to do that, and such as and going out for meals, I always had to pay. I had to work on behaviors and getting them under control. Like I'd sometimes have a super loud voice a lot of the time. Like I was not really polite in the community sometimes, because that's kind of harder to like gauge whether you're polite or not. And I also had a lot of aggression as a kid that I eventually grew out of, but I had to get that under control, and I had to work on not just being polite in verbal conversations, but I also had to work at making sure that I was respectful and making sure that I was able to adjust to social situations. So it's like when I went to prom, I had to learn how to budget dinner and everything else that was for that, and I had to learn how to be proper at prom, be proper to dance, because when I was in high school, I had dated a lot, so I had to learn some of that stuff from being in the home. I learned job skills at the Parks Department. I volunteered there for 2 summers in the Meridian Parks Department. And it's kind of come full circle because now I volunteer at the Boise Parks Department, and I do do some of their programs now as an adult, but my first job was with the Parks Department, and I also worked at a car wash, which is now an auto store, and then I also worked as a counselor in training, which is now cabin care, when I was in the group home and when I just moved to the department. By age 19, I was handling most things on my own. I was able to handle meetings, I was able to hear about my AP meetings. I never really did my own except for my last year, but I learned about what's happening. I learned about self-advocacy when I was in middle school, but practiced it more in high school when I was being taken advantage of after people talked me through it. And then asking for necessary accommodations. I was basically given the accommodations when I was in high school, but when I was 20 and in college, I had to ask for them. And that's a process that is pretty hard for anyone to get, but especially hard for someone who's thrown in the fire and with emotional and mental stuff. And I also learned how to ride the bus in like 2 days. Like they had somebody who was coaching me on the bus and was manager of one of the homes, and they thought it'd take me a month to learn. I learned how to do it in 2 days because they didn't know that I had some experience on the buses in bigger cities, so I took really quickly to learn how to ride the bus, and they actually wanted, and I actually advocated that I need to wait on a permanent job because when I was first here, they thought the folding pizza boxes would have been a good thing for me on Friday nights, and I said, I don't want to commit to something like that because I think I would fail. So I just committed. So a year after I started the Albertsons job, and I'm still there today. Next slide.
If you guys have questions, write them down on the Post-its and you can ask at the end, okay?
I started college at 20, because right out of high school. I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed it more as time went on, but in the group home, I was basically just getting my feet wet. I tried a curfew. We tried a curfew. That didn't last very long. It was like 11 o'clock most nights, but Christian fellowship would last until midnight, sometimes 1. So after I left, we did a curfew for a bit, but after a while, when I was no longer there, I kind of stopped. Started making solid friends and trying to figure out solid versus false friends. I still got taken advantage of a lot when I was in my 30s, and because I'm too trusting, so we tried to be like, okay, these people are good, we like them. These people are people who I should probably stay away from. Now, one of my things is, are they gonna support my healthy decisions, or are they gonna put me in stressful situations where I feel taken advantage of? So even then I started to make solid friends and try to figure out solid versus false friends. There were a little bit in high school, but I wasn't as social. I didn't have as many connections then, so it was more in college. I struggled academically for the first time in my life in college, at least at the beginning. When I was in middle school, I got B's and A's. When I was high school, I got a few C's in math and some other stuff, but otherwise got B's and A's. When I was in college, I got my first D when I was a first year in math, and that was the first time I got a grade that low. That was an except for math and science and one research class I never did, but that was my first time I struggled, and it was because I didn't learn until later necessarily how to do college. Also, I had a lot of activities at the time. I was more involved in church than I was in high school and prior to church. I had a couple of youth group things, but when I was in college, I did several organizations that were church organizations, and Bible classes, and so I decided, no, that's not really the direction I want to go. So I started to rebel a bit, which I continued later. Obviously, like when I was about to leave, I'm like, I'm just not gonna be here. What's the point? And that honestly is something I'm still trying to scale back from, trying to be more responsible, trying to be more an adult because I'm in my 30s. But when I did rebel quite a bit, and I'm still doing some of that right now. But it's like I think that the thing that I hear a lot in my head, because not only do I have autism and depression and anxiety, but I also have schizoaffective. But what I hear in my head when I'm somewhere is like Ian does what Ian wants, and that's kind of what it started. That's kind of when it started. Lots of food intake. Like I would go to the all-you-can-eat cafeteria where the gourmet night would have like 8 or 11 plates of foods, and I would eat cookie dough straight from the bag at night. And so when I had a lot of coffee and tea intake too, so I actually struggled with food and beverage intake a lot. And I was trying, at that point, I was struggling with trying to discern sports and what I could do, because at that point I started getting a lot of injuries, and I struggled with the time that it would take for me to do a sports team versus the time when I should have been trying to study. So that was a choice I eventually had to make, was I had to drop some of the sports stuff because of classes or because of other things, and I wanted to excel in school towards the end. And anger was starting to come back, not necessarily total aggression, but like verbal and like not like physical anger, but like verbal and like explosive yelling, and like that eventually went away because I was eventually able to have tools in my toolbox for handling depression and anxiety and social things. So anger was starting to come back, but a year or two when I was in supported living, it eventually went away. Next slide. Don't be afraid to speak up for yourself. Keep fighting for your dreams, by Gary Douglas, who is one of my favorite gymnasts. And then that's a picture of me and one of my friends I met at my last semester of college. I actually got to know her because she worked at Starbucks for a while, and I actually chose a picture of her because she's trying to be an elementary math teacher. So I'm like, she's gonna be a teacher that's a friend that I want to portray, and she's one of my best friends at this point, and we actually try to hang out. We try to hang out every month if we can, which, given that she's in school and given my schedule, is hard, but we're trying, but to hang out every once in a while. Next slide. The college years in supported independent living, which is basically where I have sophomore to senior year. I started when I was in my second semester of my sophomore year, and then I started my senior year there. I actually had 7 senior years, but my first two senior semesters were in supported independent living. I eventually rose back to academic prominence, which basically means success, after a slightly off semester, which continued until I got hit by a car. I was a part of a pedestrian car accident in 2009, and the academic struggles came back for a couple of semesters because of the brain injury, but then after that, I slowly started to get better and better and better. Towards the end of supporting panel, I was getting B's and A's a lot. I had bad roommates, also for one, who is not my friend anymore for reasons other than this, but except for one that I had in there is either in jail or dead. I can guarantee you that some of them might have died because no one has kept track of my first roommate I had there, because someone said he was receiving in the trailer park, not receiving services, which he was brain injured and on drugs. He needed services, but he wouldn't follow rules, so I'm guessing he's either in jail or dead, and then I know for sure that 2 of them are in jail. And right now, I know, and 2 of them probably are there in jail or dead.
See, that does sound a bit bad.
Yeah, they basically just set me up with roommates who are like, oh, this guy has something in common, or oh, you're so different, but you might be able to work together as roommates. So they would just like arrange roommates. That's not a good way to get a good roommate, especially when most of them are court ordered to be there. So it wasn't a good company, which I was with. I've heard some good things about other companies, but those companies weren't an option back then. I was a church activity junkie, which pretty much means I go to several different organizations. I go to a lot, and I actually had a few partners from church places when I was in supported living, and because I thought that would be a good place to meet people. Turns out they're completely different in a lot of ways, and they were not. And even though they were in church, they weren't necessarily healthy people for me to be in a relationship with, either because of parents or because they were controlling or because of infidelity. So even though they were church, does not necessarily mean that they were good people. But I did go to a lot of church activities. I was in several organizations back then. I also continued being in a lot of leadership stuff. I went to Jamaica. I went to Leadership, which is a invitation-only college thing in the middle of nowhere in a camp, and then I started an organization or two in college, and I also was able to be on some boards in college, so that was the start of my organization. Leadership was around that time with boards, and I also got to do a march. And I started my first permanent pay job, Albertsons, which I found from a job fair and I still have today. I've been working there almost 13 years. I've outgrown it, but I'm gonna try to get a different job later. But I backslid a bit due to lack of solid health and busy schedule. I was always constantly on the go, away from home, because I didn't trust my roommates to keep me safe, so I would just stay away from home as much as I could as kind of like a defense mechanism, and I would only pretty much go home and sleep. But because of that, I lost a lot of skills, and I'm gaining back a lot of them still today. Almost 8 years later. Next slide. Then I went to self-directed services from 2012 to today, which got the rest of my senior years. I was 29 to present. I started when I was 29 because I started a few days after I was 29. I had some hard times with roommate and support at the beginning. I actually only had one roommate in self-direction, and he was very, very abusive in many forms, and support at the beginning was good support at the beginning, except for one person who was real manipulative, but the rest of them after a while ended up quitting because of family stuff. So they weren't they all worked for 3 or 4 years, except for the one who I let go, worked for a little under 3 years, but they ended up all leaving because they all had family stuff. So I had struggles with support, finding people who would stick. There's also a few who were added as backups because of someone I knew, and they decided that they eventually quit, although one lasted for quite a while. But I did have a hard time keeping support, and with my roommate at the beginning, and because of my roommate being so destructive, depression and anxiety and job hours became more of a thing. I kind of wanted to be at work. I kind of requested to work as much as I could and be in as much leadership stuff in school as I could, which led to many officer roles with local organizations, and then I left them in my last term because I'm doing partners in policy making. I'm vice chair. I started being the vice chair of the Developmental Disability Council, and then I started getting more support hours then, because that's what people requested. And so I said, no, I can't do this and still be officer in all these organizations. So that was a choice I had to make. And in my last semester, I'm like, I'm only here for part of the year anyway, so I'm gonna let other people do the work. I moved to the near north end in March of my second to last semester. I actually moved from Terryview and Cole to 15th and Jefferson, which was the apartment that had a a couple of fires in 10 days eventually, but I actually was homeless for a bit, but I now have an apartment off 16th. But I moved to the near north end in the middle of my second to last semester, and moving, if you're in college or in any schooling at any point, I would highly advise against moving in the middle of the semester. I've had to do it a few times because that's just what I had to do. There's no other time that would work, but especially since at some points I took college around. But if you're ever in school and you need to move, you need to do it. But I'd advise, if you can, try to do breaks, because moving is chaotic. Moving in the middle of the semester is very chaotic. I did struggle with alcohol at times. I actually started drinking because of a friend who I go camping and do a lot of stuff with. He actually gave me a beer at the campground, and that's how it got started. And then it snowballed slowly into mimosas and all sorts of other stuff. And it actually spiraled to where I almost was a borderline functioning alcoholic at the end of that. And I did struggle with caffeine. At times, I was able to take breaks from alcohol during 2 of my last 3 semesters.
Sounds pretty rough.
At the last semester, I'm just like, screw it, I'm just going to party as much as I can. I'm not going to be there, and I'm not going to be here for very much longer, so I just did whatever I wanted to. I continued to become more independent, actually learn a lot more leadership roles, learn a lot of different types of stuff that I needed to do at home and in the community. And I actually learned a lot more stuff as time went on, because I had people who would help me learn things, like and helped do an all-day orientation training. So I continued to be more independent. I think at the end I was forced to have more, it's kind of swindled into having more hours, because some people were like, we need the hours, we need the money, but I continued to do a lot more stuff on my own than I otherwise would have had, than I otherwise would have. And I worked many hours through it, both with organizations and with other stuff, and I had many fun vacations. I went to Nevada for the DD Council Conference and got to ride the bowl. I went to Utah for another developmental disability conference, and actually went to a baseball game there. They have a AAA team, and I actually got to see them play. I went to New Hampshire to visit family. I actually had a family reunion somewhere before I graduated, and got to know all sorts of things about my family, more than I wanted to know. I went to Portland to visit my sister and enjoyed that. Went to Pennsylvania towards the middle of one of my senior years to visit my grandma, and then she passed a couple years later. And I went to New York that same trip, and so many vacations. I actually traveled pretty much every summer. I explained work. Summer's my time to travel, so you might not get me for a lot of summer, but I like to have fun in the summer. It's not as fun as Jamaica, but I counted all the states I had been to at some point, and I'd been to 34 states and DC, and I also went to Maryland at that point with the autism campus inclusion, so I did quite a bit of traveling. I was like, summer's my time to travel, and sometimes at the beginning of the school year I'd go in parts of Idaho, or I'd do a spring break trip to Oregon, or somewhere just for fun, just to celebrate being in school. But despite all this constant turmoil, and despite all these different setbacks, I was still able to get A's and B's my last several semesters from the fall of 2014 to the fall of 2017. I was able to get A's and B's, so I was able to do really well academically at the end. Next slide. We must become the change we wish to create. That's actually a picture of me at the Youth Leadership Forum as a peer counselor, hence the residence tag, because we were resident in the dorms. I actually learned a lot as a peer counselor, and I think that Youth Leadership Forum, even though I was never part of it as a delegate, because no one at the group home knew about it back then, I actually was able to be the first to jump at peer council because I really wanted to do it, and they're like, cool. So this year I'm going to try to be a counselor for the Youth Leadership Forum, and it's delegates are 16 to 21, and you learn about leadership, you touch stuff like bowling and going to the Capitol and going to the zoo for free. Everything is for free, and then they like stipend the staff, and you get to eat in the cafeteria, and you get to do whole boxes and other stuff. It's a great program, and I would highly recommend anybody who is on the edge of thinking about doing youth leadership forum to do it. And actually, I ended up becoming buds with some of the people who were delegates too. I ended up becoming friends with them. So that's something that, honestly, I would suggest to anyone trying to make change. So yeah, that's actually my plug for youth leadership forum. Gandhi did say that, and I've been able to create a lot more change than I was expecting. Next slide. Those college years, bless you. Besides transportation, mostly just need monitoring on my goals. Like sometimes monitoring means like, say you need to learn how to take a shower and need to use the toilet or cook. You just check, okay, are you cooking good meals? Are you remembering to do that other stuff? Just take a shower, use the bathroom. Are you remembering to do those things? So that's what I mean by monitoring, just making sure you're keeping up with day-to-day tasks, making sure just checking in with people here and there. Besides transportation, that's all I need. I'm pretty independent by myself. Due to that, I actually went from 30 hours of support to 8 hours currently. Due to that, and also due to my support goal, because I wasn't learning anything from them. Like at some point, and because they were using me financially and with fraud, at some point, I actually decided to let them go because I wasn't learning anything. In addition to those things, like yes, I learned how to start a fire and how to cut wood, but how much of that are you going to need to know if you don't have a fireplace and if you're not going to go camping all the time? Not very much, but like, and they would like be on the phone all the time, and we'd watch movies, and we'd have relaxing days, which was just us watching movies or being on our phone or sleeping. So as a person, I went from 8 hours, 30 hours of support to 8 currently. Now I get 4 of support workers, which are basically people who support me on the waiver program, as it's just one person sometimes, and one person works once a month, and then I get 4 hours of mental health support for my schizoaffective, is how I was able to qualify for that. But I'm still working at Albertsons. I'm trying to find something else that's more career-based. I really want to be a peer support specialist as my eventual career, which basically is like helping people having mental health issues or dual diagnosis, helping other people. So that's kind of what I want to try to do as an eventual career goal before I also want to start my own bed and breakfast and my own gym right next door to each other. That's actually my eventual career goal. I traveled to New Orleans for a developmental disability conference. At this point, I'm not going to go back to a developmental disability council conference, but I would be down to go to another developmental disability conference of some sort. I'm actually kind of but New Orleans was my last one because I'm like, I want to give other people a chance. I'm very selfless like that. Oceanside I went to because I wanted to go back. Because I was a kid when I went and I didn't remember it, so I'm like, I'm going to go to Oceanside. So last couple of Septembers I've been to Oceanside and Yellowstone. I was in Yellowstone when I was 3, and that was the first time my mom knew I was smart because I would rearrange the seats. But now that I decided I want to go back because I wasn't even talking when I went to Yellowstone the first time, so obviously I didn't remember. And I went to Alaska to visit my best friend there. She lives in Almeida, Alaska, which is a small village, but she lived in Anchorage when I visited her. I've been sober since September 2nd. I won't even get a taste of alcohol from somebody because even though I technically wouldn't get drunk, it would set me off to where I would want more of it. So I just said, no, I'm going to get a taste. I just know that it's not something I want to do. And I've lost some friends because of it, but I've also gained a lot of respect in the community. started teaching myself learning with books last year. I actually started checking out nonfiction books that were like science and like, not just activism, but science and like memoirs and like other stuff where it's like I teach myself all these things, learning with books, and I've decided to start your own business class and a few community ed classes involved because I want to start my own business and because I have a friend who, her business is trying to start people's businesses. I'm going to probably go to her classes in the fall, and I'm going to try to do a few more community ed classes since graduating. I've done Write Your Own Story. I've done one on meditation, which ironically enough one time had a fire drill in the meditation class, and the second time I tried to take it, my mom was looking for me for an hour, so yeah, kind of ironic that happened, but I'm going to try to do the meditation class again in community ed, and I actually did a community ed class on finance, so I've done some community ed classes. I want to do some of those again, and I do a lot at Fort Boise. I'm actually the poster child for Fort Boise self-direction and mental health because I do so much with them and because I enjoy their programs and I'm able to plug them really well. I'm also constantly finding stuff in the community. Like I found housing forums, because I'm passionate about helping other people find housing that's as tough as it's been for me. I'm passionate about activism, but I'm also passionate about going to concerts, going to sporting events, going to different workout classes. So I'm always constantly finding stuff in the community. Like if there's something, I found some groups online that have been a pretty good support system, and I've been able to work through that because because my support system has changed from school where I have friends from school, I have friends who are colleagues, that's it. Now it's like I have friends from all these groups who I'm not necessarily going to be colleagues with, but who I can do fun stuff with. And my church friends, I have my friends who I do advocacy with, and so I constantly find stuff in that community by myself. Hasn't had a lot of stuff. It hasn't all been good since college. I did live near the north end again after being homeless for a couple of months. Technically, I lived at my mom's when I was homeless because of my mental health. But my place had 2 fires in 10 days, so technically, because my place was the only one that didn't have too much water damage where we were able to salvage stuff, I was technically homeless because of the fires. But I was living at mom's. I think that my mom and I actually did fight a lot towards the end. Like we would like be arguing across the hall, and we were so there's throws across the hall, and I was so tired from all the mental health stuff to where I think we'd be friends after that. But good news, my mom and I are closer than we ever have been. She goes to a lot of my speeches. She helps me with transportation. We actually see each other usually a few times a week. So I honestly am closer to my mom than I ever have been, which if you said that I thought several months after living at mom's that I would be that close to her, I would say no, but we actually have repaired a lot of it. It's my dad and my stepmom who I'm still working on repairing. My dad's somewhat repaired, but we're still trying to figure out how to like chat on email before I set stuff up. And my stepmom has only said several words to me the last couple of years since graduating. But some parts of my new apartment are dishwasher and on-site laundry and air conditioning, which at my last one over Jefferson didn't have a dishwasher, so I had to do everything by hand. I had to schlep stuff in a big suitcase to go to the laundromat, and didn't have air conditioning, which, except for July and August, was not that big of a deal. But when it's July and August and there's no air conditioning, you roast. And so I had to stay at mom's for a few nights. I had to travel a lot, so it wasn't that big of a deal traveling because I traveled so much. But sometimes at the last place when I was there, I would roast before going to mom's. I'm an in-demand self-advocate, meaning that I get asked to do a lot of these trainings. I am asked probably to do on average probably about 10 to 12 speeches a year, and some of them I get paid for. So I say I'm a semi-professional speaker because I get paid for some of them. And I also graduated with Partners in Policymaking in 2018, which is another great program where people who are adults and parents go to learn about policymaking, learn about other things that they really want to learn about. Go to Capco, you learn about everything from disability history all the way to being able to away to boards at the end, and then you graduate. So that was a great thing for me. Some point, sometimes you all might want to try to apply for it, but that's one of my other favorite things I did recently. I've been a snowshoe participant since 2017, except for a year when I did kind of like snowshoe hiking. I've been a swimming participant. I was for a few years.
And Ian, is that Special Olympics?
Yeah, for both were Special Olympics. Actually did snowshoeing and swimming with Special Olympics. I did swimming for a few years when I was little, then did it again when I was in my mid-20s, and then I did it again 2015 to present. I also have done snowshoeing for a few years with them with Special Olympics, and I've been more regularly doing yoga classes. Now I have a pass at Sage. I do yoga classes for Boise. I have the Y. I have the campus gym, and then I do some at home. So I do yoga at least once a week, sometimes more. I do dance try to do dance once a week, sometimes more. Unless it's a real busy week like this week is, I do try to do yoga and dancing at least once a week as much as I can. And I'm more involved with Fort Boise, which is a program at Boise. It's a program over by the Veterans Center, and it's a 10-minute walk for me. So I've done probably about 10. I do several classes every semester, which is either yoga or dance, or like go to a hockey game, or like go to other stuff that I enjoy. And I've been able to be pretty involved with my Boise community team because I'm just like, I'm close. I'm an international ambassador for Special Olympics, so I'm going to do as much stuff with the Boise community team as I can. They've been my team off and on since the beginning. Eventually I've been on some other teams, but I've been involved in Boise community for about half the time total, and I continue to enjoy it. It's my home. It feels like home. I live alone. I started living alone actually at the end of 2016 when I called the Dog Protection Services on my roommate because he was abusing me in many forms, including physical abuse. And some sexual abuse. So I had to eventually call Dog Protection Services on my roommate, and that's when I started living alone. And I've actually seen constant improvement in my independence living alone. If you can afford to live alone, I would suggest it because then you learn a lot more independence. You learn how to do a lot more things. I've learned how to do a lot more things with minimal support, but you can talk to people who work with you, and when you live alone, you're the boss of your own schedule, and you can genuinely try to create a way to work through your skills and get help with whatever you need to do. And some people have to live on their own, some people have to live with a parent for a bit, but if you can live independently, I would suggest living with a roommate until that's no longer a viable option, and trying to live alone if you can afford it, which I guess not a lot of people here can, but eventually that's something that definitely helps your independence a lot. Next slide. This year goals: use the library for movies and books regularly. I'm trying to use the library for movies once a month. I actually have a few movies that I'm going to try to watch the next few days. And to read at least 100 books. I've read probably about 30 already. I probably finished 30 already this year, so I'm on that goal. Find a new job, either applying at the career fair or elsewhere. I actually do want to try to find a job that I actually enjoy, that I'm actually passionate about, that I actually want to do for the next few years, or at least temporarily, until I'm able to start my own business. I want to work towards being a peer sports specialist next year. This is basically mental health, helping people with mental health problems, and maybe work 20 hours doing that and 10 hours at whatever job I get this year. So I kind of want to do both because I feel like both would be something I'd love to do. I do want to help people, but I also want to work towards starting my own business in the next few years too. I do want to get a training at the police station set up for next year in February. They actually, about like positive experience having autism, they actually you have to set up trainings a year in advance because it's booked so regularly. So that's why I want to try to get it set up for next year, and I have a few speakers in mind, or a few that I want to get a parent, and I want to be the self-advocate to train, and then I also want to get a police officer or a retired police officer to train so that we can have that conversation, and so that we have all three people to train on what having positive experiences with people with disabilities is, as a police officer is like, and positive experiences we've had with law enforcement. Like as an adult, police officers have been much more changed from when I was a child and I was getting in trouble with them. It's changed, and I would say, are they coming for me for years because they didn't understand what was happening at the time? To where I'm like, I've worked with Tippacop, which is a special Olympics program. I've worked with begging for bugs, which is not a special Olympics program, working with police officers. I've had plenty of friends who are police officers who are supporters of Special Olympics, and I've made some friends with different councils I've been a part of that are police officers, so I've had a lot more positive experiences with them, and that's what I want to highlight. I don't want to highlight being tied down when I was 9, 10, 11 because of hurting people. I want to try to highlight being able to be in the community, working alongside them, being able to educate people. That's what I want to highlight at the training, but I have to try to set that up in the next year or two for next year. But I want to try to do that soon. I also want to stay on the Developmental Disability Council. I want to eventually turn out and eventually run for City Council. I want to stay on the Developmental Disability Council until I turn out, and then I want to be on City Council for at least a bit. Well, at least run. That's going to cost a lot of money. That's going to cost a lot of time. And as someone who has mental health and developmental disability and identifies as LGBT and identifies as liberal, I might not win, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try to run. I'm going to try to win, and I'm going to try to be able to be a trailblazer in that kind of format. I do want to work as a youth leadership forum counselor. I enjoy being in peer council so much that I'm actually going to apply as counselor. And while I will have to do some teaching and I will have to do a lot of meetings as counselor, I'm ready for it. I'm actually it's the same time as the state summer games. So I'm like, I'm decided that because it's the same time as the state summer games, if I get accepted, I'll do the counselor instead of being an athlete because counselor works more for my career. So even though it's a conflict, it's a risk I'm willing to take to be a youth leadership forum counselor during the same time as the state games. And while I will give up 2 or 3 gold medals because I'm such a good swimmer to where I do win multiple medals every meet, I actually think that youth leadership forum would work more towards professional goals, and that's why I want to do that instead of Special Olympics, and that's a choice I made for myself, and that's probably what I'm going to do if I get accepted. I want to stay in committees, and because I'm on several right now for the State Independent Living Council, for Community Now, and I did some stuff with the Policy Coalition as well as the Developmental Disability Council. I was on the consortium, so I want to stay on some of the committees and come to the point where I can increase 8 hours of support from support workers and mental health supports at half that at the end of the year. I think that having 8 hours of support is not going to be something I want to do at the end of the year. I want to do half that because I want to be completely independent. I probably won't qualify for services. We'll qualify for services this year, but I doubt next year or the year after. So that's why I want to pare it down to 4 hours by the end of the year, because I think that eventually fading out is probably what's going to work best for me, and that's a choice I had to make as well. I want to be independent, completely independent in the next few years, so that's why I'm like, I'm gonna try to have it this year, and then hopefully the next year I can be by myself completely. I do want to stay sober. I think that that's good not only for my physical health, but also for my mental health to abstain from alcohol, and also because I've noticed as time gone on that alcohol made myself the worst aspects of myself just heightened. So it's like, I had some addiction challenges in my family.
That's why I don't plan on drinking any alcohol at all.
Right. That's why I had some addiction in my family, so that's why so that's why I'm trying to stay sober. And it's a choice you have to make. You have to make a choice. Do I want to experiment? Do I want to not? If it's something that runs in your family, I would suggest no, because honestly, you can get addicted to it yourself. And I knew I had it going into it, but I'm just like, for a bit, I'm just like, it's just a way to have fun and loosen up. And then I realized after time, and after disaster after disaster after disaster, I'm like, it'd be best for me not to. And I have the boundary with friends that they can drink if they want. I don't really care if they drink, but I'm gonna stay sober myself. Next slide.
Good choice.
If your dreams don't scare you at times, maybe they aren't big enough. That's one of my friends who's actually going to try to be a special education teacher, and she's one of my best friends. I actually met her trying to tackle her at a brewery that I used to go to a lot, but we actually became good friends because shortly after that we started hanging out a lot more. And I'm like, and I said that, I claimed that that I adopted her, but she said no. I adopted you, so we've been good friends for a year and a half or so, and we're going to continue to stay good friends. But but because she's trying to be a special education teacher, that's why I included her. Actually, all the people that I'm showing actually want to be teachers or are teachers of my friends. Next slide. And then that's my buddy Allison, who is now a teacher in California and who actually was studying to be a math teacher, but she actually was studying to be a special education teacher for a bit. That's a picture of me in my apartment. I'm wearing my Pride shirt because I support Pride. That other shirt is a shirt of a band that my friend plays in, and that's me at the Youth Leadership Forum in my in a t-shirt I got from the New Orleans conference. Next slide. Questions? Make them good. I want to come back. I talked a lot. I usually save questions at the end because if you say it during the middle, because as you can tell, I have a lot to say and I take up a lot of time, so I always ask for questions at the end. And but if you have questions, written down, make them good. I want to come back. I do want to do more of these trainings here and other stuff. Yeah.
What did you do in college to help you get more focused, or help you stay organized, or help you get better grades?
Well, I actually went to a lot of success building workshops in college. I went to academic support center for a few of them. I had social work interns. That worked with me. There were people who were masters in social work who would help me with my goals. I went to academic support a lot. I basically used all the tools I had and used all of them to my advantage. And I would also sometimes when I wanted to go out with friends, I'd be like, no, I have to stay home because I have this report due. then I had this report due in a week that I want to work on, so I was very driven, and I was able to say, usually I would say yes to this event, but since I have a test the next day, I have to say no, and that's the choice I had to make as an adult, and I was able to get better grades because of that. Like my last several semesters, I got all A's and B's even in summer school because I was able to prioritize my schoolwork and getting help with my schoolwork over anything else. Even social, even like during sport event, school and work was the top priority, so I had to, and that's a choice you have to make as you get further and further. As you get further and further, it gets harder and harder. Anyone else?
Random question. Got any book recommendations?
Books. I like a lot of self-help. Basically you have to find what works for you. Like I like a lot of memoirs. I like a lot of self-help books. I like a lot of young adult novels, but that doesn't work for everyone. Like you have to find a book that tailors to your interests. Like maybe you like fantasy, in which case Harry Potter, or Into the Brave would be good.
I've seen the Harry Potter movies.
But maybe you like memoirs, in which case October Sky would be good. But it just depends on what you like. But you can always go to the library and check out books. If something doesn't work, try something else.
I have one for you too, so I'll just pass this down.
You said something about having a toolbox that helps keep you, like, manage different things. What do you explain what your toolbox is?
Well, my toolbox is making sure I do yoga and dance pretty much frequently, and make sure that I and get time to read a few times a week, get time to journal a few times a week. Some weeks, like this week, I'm not able to because I'm doing so much with my boards and so much other stuff. But usually I do that. I walk. I try to walk a lot of places to do like meditation, and I like work on my journal. I read. I advocate for myself. I hang out with friends. I have several things where it's like I love what I do all this stuff not just because I want to, but sometimes the last thing I want to do is read or journal. But I often do those things that I don't want to because I know it helps me be successful. So that's what I mean by toolbox, is by doing the things which need to be successful, and you need to be successful, which is different for everybody.
And what's your best story about a time you self-advocated for yourself?
Well, I actually have a story from my senior year in college where I failed a class because the teacher was discriminatory against people with developmental disabilities, and she basically claimed I didn't do the work, and she basically flunked me in a lot of assignments because of hearsay. So I actually decided, I'm not going to let one jerk get me down. I'm not going to let one bad teacher get me down. So I said, Mom, I really want to finish science, but I want to finish the PR certificate too. And there's research methods with a teacher in Nampa who I think is going to be better. So I signed up for research methods, registered on my own. There were still some spots in there, and I actually got an A the second time. I got an A minus. It was a Nampa, so transportation was rough because I had to take the Nampa bus, and then I had to get picked up when the building was close to closing. And I would often do homework the next day, hitting the ground running because it was a night class. And who wants to do homework at 10 o'clock at night? And I was out all day anyway, so I'd just do homework the next day. I worked on getting a group together to be successful every Friday, and did some other stuff. And did some stuff as a group together before class. So the teacher was very personable. She would give me tests at the end of class, and I'm like, I need to pass research methods more than I need to pass science. So I dropped my astronomy and stars and astrology class, which good move because the teacher wasn't going to be invested in my success because he actually denied me even going into class to sit in to make sure this is a good fit for me. So if he's not willing to do that, do that, he's not gonna be a good teacher. So
Right.
I actually took research methods and got an A. That's one example of self-advocacy. Another example is, I'm so excited about geometry because I fully never understood it, and now with a good teacher, I'm gonna be able to understand it. And I understood geometry in that class because he was able to go to office hours for an hour or an hour and a half sometimes, stay after class, do it before class appointments, which was hard because I had a 9:45 class and I'm not a morning person. But we were able to go before and after class, and I was able to pass the geometry test with an A.
Nice.
So that was another time of self-advocacy where I'm like, I'm so excited how to do this, where I struggled before, but I didn't let it get me down. So yeah.
What's something you wish you knew in college that you know now?
I guess I wish I knew how to like make solid friends who were gonna support me. Like I had a few friends in college who supported me, and some who I'm still friends with. But I wish I knew how to make solid friends, how like some friends would try to take advantage of me. And I wish I had some more skills with that in college because I think that that's something everyone should know. And if friends are going to try to take advantage of you, in your adult, it's basically your choice of if you're going to stay friends with them or not. But I wish I had like more training on that. You didn't get taught a lot in college, especially being in their 14 and a half years plus 9 summers like I did. But you don't really get like a social skills class. They don't offer that in college. But I wish that they did, and I wish that I had some of the groups. I wish I had some of the groups in college that I do now, and I also wish that there was a lot more for people with autism. More when I was a kid versus now. I actually wish that there was a lot more of the therapies, a lot more of the other stuff that there's now. But when I was a kid, autism was an incident of 1 in 150,000. And when people thought of autism, they thought Rain Man or Temple Grandin. When now it's 1 in 45, and 3% of the population actually end up going to college. So I wish I had the tools when I was a kid. I wish that I had tools on how to make friends. But social skill classes, unfortunately, are not yet taught in college, so I learned a lot of that on my own. Any other questions? Anyone? You good?
I think our time is about up.
Yeah.
But thank you, Ian.
It-
Thank you.
It's